In the shadow of towering crystalline spires that pierced Kepler Station's artificial sky, a human mechanic worked with calloused hands among the forgotten. The air hummed with anti-gravity engines and whispered conversations in a dozen alien tongues. Yet silence surrounded Marcus Chen like a protective shield. They saw only his worn jumpsuit, his oil-stained fingers, his quiet acceptance of their disdain. None of them, not the wealthy traders, not the diplomatic corps, not even the station's security, could have imagined that his simple act of kindness would soon reveal a secret that would reshape the balance of 3 star systems. Before we start, subscribe now so you don't miss more incredible stories like this one. Oh, and before we dive in, tell us in the comments, where are you watching this video from? We love hearing from you and always read every message. The promenade of Kepler Station stretched like a cathedral of commerce beneath its dome of stars. Holographic advertisements danced between floating platforms where beings from across the Proxima sector conducted business in the universal language of profit. The air tasted of recycled oxygen and ozone, tinged with the metallic bite of fusion reactors humming 3 levels below. Marcus Chen knelt beside a broken maintenance drone in the corner where few bothered to look. His workspace, if it could be called that, consisted of salvaged parts spread across a magnetic mat, tools that had seen better decades, and the quiet dignity of a man who had learned to make himself invisible. "Look at the pet human, still playing with his toys," sneered Vex Morden, a hegemony trade official whose scaled skin gleamed with bioenhancement implants. His entourage, a collection of minor functionaries and social climbers, tittered at his words like wind chimes in a toxic breeze. Marcus didn't look up from his work. His fingers moved with practiced precision, coaxing life back into circuits that others would have discarded. Around him, the station's elite moved in their careful choreography of power and influence, their conversations a symphony of casual cruelty directed at anyone deemed lesser. "I heard he actually thinks he belongs here," whispered Lyra Vesek, a Centauri diplomat whose crystalline features caught the promenade's ethereal light. As if 3 centuries of Terran mediocrity could ever match true evolution. The laughter that followed was sharp enough to cut glass. It echoed off the curved walls, bouncing between the levels of the station like a virus seeking new hosts. Marcus's hands never wavered, but something flickered behind his dark eyes, not anger, but a deeper understanding that none of them possessed. From the shadows between 2 merchant stalls, a small figure watched the scene unfold. 7-year-old Zara pressed herself against the cold metal wall, her large amber eyes reflecting the promenade's lights. Her legs, twisted from a genetic condition that human medicine couldn't comprehend and alien medicine wouldn't treat, hung useless in her primitive wheelchair. But while the hall laughed, the outsider's eyes shimmered faintly, as if holding a truth older than the stars. The mockery might have continued indefinitely, but fate, that peculiar force that governs the intersection of coincidence and consequence, chose that moment to intervene. Zara's wheelchair, a cobbled-together contraption of human engineering and alien scrap metal, chose that precise instant to fail completely. The anti-gravity disc beneath her seat sputtered once, twice, then died with a sound like a sigh. The chair dropped to the deck with a metallic crash that echoed through the promenade like a gunshot. Zara tumbled forward, her small hands scraping against the polished floor as she tried to break her fall. The laughter stopped abruptly, replaced by the uncomfortable silence that follows an accident no one wants to acknowledge. Zara lay on the cold deck, her amber eyes bright with unshed tears, her useless legs twisted beneath her in a position that would have been agony for any being with functional nerves in their lower extremities. "Oh, for the love of the void," Vex Morden muttered, his scaled features twisting with disgust. "Can't someone clean up this mess? The smell of poverty is becoming overwhelming." Marcus rose slowly from his workstation, his movements deliberate and unhurried. Every eye in the immediate vicinity turned to watch as he approached the fallen child. His tool belt clinked softly with each step, the sound somehow defiant in the oppressive quiet. "Don't touch her, human." Lyra Vesek's voice cut through the air like a blade of ice. "Her species doesn't respond well to contamination from inferior genetics." The crowd pressed closer, sensing entertainment in the unfolding drama. Personal recording devices appeared as if from nowhere, their lenses focusing on the strange tableau: the broken alien child, the stubborn human mechanic, and the circle of beings who had elevated indifference into an art form. Marcus knelt beside Zara without a word. His hands, steady despite the weight of a dozen stairs, began examining the ruined wheelchair with the focused attention of someone who understood broken things. "I said don't touch her." Vex Morden stepped forward, his bio-enhanced muscles rippling beneath his ceremonial robes. "Are you deaf as well as primitive?" For the first time since the incident began, Marcus looked up. His gaze met the trade official's eyes with a calm that seemed to emanate from some deep, unshakable core. "She's hurt," he said simply, his voice carrying across the promenade with startling clarity. No one believed they would even try. But the silence that followed spread across the chamber like a storm. The wheelchair was beyond repair. That much was obvious even to the casual observers who had gathered to witness what they assumed would be a human's humiliation. The anti-gravity disc had been a salvaged unit, probably third or fourth hand, and the power coupling showed the telltale signs of jury-rigged modifications that had finally reached their breaking point. Marcus's examination was thorough but gentle. His fingers traced the damaged components with the reverence of someone who understood that in a place like Kepler Station, such improvised solutions often meant the difference between mobility and being forgotten entirely. "The coupling's shot," he murmured, more to himself than to the watching crowd. "And the stabilization matrix is running on emergency power. Has been for weeks, I'd guess." Zara watched him work with an intensity that seemed disproportionate to her age. Her amber eyes followed every movement, cataloging each gesture with the precision of someone who had learned early that understanding the mechanics of her world might be the key to surviving it. "Can you fix it?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The words were in standard Galactic, but her accent carried undertones that Marcus couldn't quite place. Something musical and ancient that seemed to resonate in harmonics beyond human hearing. "Not here," Marcus replied, his attention still focused on the wheelchair's innards. "But I might be able to build you something better, if you'd like." The offer hung in the recycled air like a challenge to the natural order. Around them, the crowd stirred with the restless energy of beings who sensed that the entertainment was taking an unexpected turn. "Build something better?" Vex Morden's laughter was harsh and grating. "With what? Scrap metal and human delusions of adequacy?" "The child needs proper medical intervention, not whatever primitive contraption you might cobble together in your little corner." "She needs legs," Marcus said quietly, still not looking up from his examination. "Not medicine. Legs." The distinction seemed important to him, though its significance was lost on most of the watching crowd. Only Zara seemed to understand, her amber eyes widening slightly as if Marcus had spoken a secret that she had been keeping close to her heart. "Exo-Legs," she breathed, the words carrying a weight that made several nearby beings shift uncomfortably. "Real ones. That work." Marcus finally looked up, meeting her gaze directly for the first time. What passed between them in that moment was invisible to the watching crowd, but it carried the weight of recognition, the profound acknowledgement that passes between two beings who understand what it means to be underestimated. "Real ones that work," he confirmed, his voice steady and sure. And just when everyone thought they would break, something was revealed that no one expected. What Marcus produced from his tool belt shouldn't have been possible. The device was small enough to fit in his palm, but its surface rippled with technology that made the station's most advanced systems look primitive by comparison. Neural interface ports gleamed like tiny stars along its edges, and the power core hummed with a frequency that seemed to bypass the ears entirely and resonate directly in the bones. "Where did you get that?" Lyra Vesek's crystalline features had gone pale, her voice tight with something that might have been fear. Marcus didn't answer immediately. Instead, he held the device up to the light, watching as its surface reflected the promenade's glow in patterns that seemed to shift and change with each heartbeat. "My daughter designed the base architecture," he said finally, "before she died on Proxima 7. The words fell into the gathered crowd like stones into still water, creating ripples of recognition that spread outward through the watching beings. Proxima 7, the colony that had vanished overnight 3 years ago, leaving behind only empty buildings and unanswered questions. The first human settlement to successfully adapt alien biotechnology to Terran physiology. "That's impossible." Vex Morden's voice had lost its mocking edge. The Proxima 7 research was classified under hegemony protocol. No human would have access to that level of... "Dr. Elena Chen," Marcus interrupted, his tone carrying the weight of absolute certainty, lead researcher on the Proxima 7 Neural Integration Project. "My daughter. And the reason I understand exactly what this little girl needs." Zara's amber eyes widened further, and for the first time since her fall, she struggled to sit up straighter. The name meant something to her, something that sent shivers of recognition through her small frame. Dr. Chen's work was lost when the colony disappeared. Lyra Vesek's voice was barely above a whisper. The hegemony spent 2 years trying to recover her research data. "You're saying you have access to her files?" Marcus looked down at Zara, his expression soft with a grief that had been tempered into something resembling peace. "I have something better than files," he said. "I have her prototypes and her memory core." He produced a second device from his tool belt, this one larger, more complex, its surface covered with ports and interfaces that seemed to shift configuration as he held it. The crowd pressed closer despite themselves, drawn by the promise of technology that had been rumored but never seen. The Exo-Leg project wasn't just theory, Marcus continued, his voice growing stronger with each word. Elena built 3 working prototypes before the colony went dark. One for a Centauri child with spinal paralysis, one for a hegemony warrior who'd lost his legs to plasma fire, and one for a little girl whose species doesn't exist in any official records. It wasn't just knowledge, it was legacy. And suddenly, silence fell across the crowd. The recognition hit the crowd like a wave breaking against stone. Zara's amber eyes, her musical accent, the way she seemed to understand technology that was decades ahead of standard galactic development. Details that had been dismissed as curiosities suddenly assembled themselves into a pattern that changed everything. The air in the promenade seemed to thicken with the weight of revelation, as if reality itself was adjusting to accommodate a truth that none of them had been prepared to face. "You're Vashti," Lyra Vesek breathed, her crystalline features reflecting the promenade's lights in trembling patterns. The silver veins beneath her translucent skin pulsed with patterns of recognition and fear. The ghost species, the ones who supposedly vanished into the void centuries ago. The ones who built the neural integration technology that half the galaxy depends on. The words spread through the crowd like ripples through water. Beings who had never heard the name whispered it to their neighbors, while those who recognized it stepped back involuntarily. The Vashti were more than legend. They were the unseen architects of galactic civilization, the beings whose technology made interspecies medicine, communication, and trade possible. Zara looked up at Marcus with an expression that seemed far too old for her 7 years. In that moment, the pretense of childhood fell away like a discarded mask, revealing something ancient and powerful beneath the surface. Her amber eyes flickered with inner light, and the air around her began to hum with harmonics that made sensitive beings' teeth ache. "My mother said you would understand eventually," she said, her voice carrying frequencies that made the very air seem to sing. She said that grief and love were the two forces that could break through any barrier, including species prejudice and the comfortable blindness that allows civilizations to ignore their own cruelty. The crowd stirred uneasily, beings pressing against each other in unconscious need for reassurance. The Vashti were legend, beings of such advanced evolution that they had supposedly transcended physical existence entirely, choosing to guide galactic development from the shadows rather than rule it directly. Their technology was rumored to be seamlessly integrated with their biological systems, making them capable of feats that bordered on the miraculous. "Your mother," Marcus said quietly, his hands still steady as he began connecting the prototype Exo-Legs to Zara's nervous system. The process required precision beyond normal human capability, but his movements carried the confidence of someone who had performed this procedure before. Elena mentioned her in her final transmission. Dr. Lyra Vashti Chen, the xenobiology expert who helped develop the cross-species neural interfaces. The woman who could bridge the gap between organic consciousness and technological augmentation. The name struck the watching crowd like lightning. Dr. Lyra Vashti Chen, the mysterious researcher who had appeared at Proxima 7 just months before the colony's disappearance. The woman whose insights had revolutionized the field of interspecies medical technology, whose theoretical work had become the foundation for every major medical breakthrough in the past decade. The woman who had vanished along with everyone else when the colony went dark, leaving behind only echoes of her brilliance. "She didn't vanish," Zara said softly as Marcus worked, the neural connectors beginning to interface with her nervous system in cascades of light that made several observers shield their eyes. "She went home, to mourn, to plan, to decide whether this galaxy deserved the gifts her people had been giving it, or whether it was time to take them away." The implications struck the crowd like a physical blow. Without Vashti technology, the medical systems that kept half the galaxy alive would fail. The neural interfaces that allowed different species to communicate would go silent. The life support systems on 1,000 stations and ships would shut down, leaving their occupants to face the cold vacuum of space with only their natural biology to sustain them. Vex Morden had gone completely still, his bio-enhanced features frozen in an expression of dawning horror. The implications were crashing over him in waves, each one more devastating than the last. His own enhancements, his carefully purchased perfection, his entire identity, all of it depended on technology that could be withdrawn at the whim of beings he had never bothered to acknowledge as real. "The Vashti High Council," he whispered, his voice cracking like ice under pressure. "The beings who control the neural technology licenses for half the galaxy. The ones who could shut down every hospital, every medical facility, every life support system from here to the outer rim with a single command. The ones who hold the keys to galactic civilization itself." Marcus paused in his work, looking up at the trade official with something that might have been pity. Around them, the crowd had gone silent, the weight of their situation pressing down on them like the gravity of a collapsing star. "Dr. Lyra Vashti Chen," he said clearly, his words carrying across the promenade with devastating clarity, "Supreme Counselor of the Vashti Collective. The being who decides whether your species deserves to continue benefiting from technologies you've never bothered to understand. Mother of the child you just called a mess. The child you suggested should be cleaned up like garbage. The child whose pain and suffering you turned into entertainment for your afternoon's amusement. The Exo-Legs hummed to life with a sound like distant music, their neural interfaces blazing with light that seemed to come from somewhere beyond the visible spectrum. Zara's amber eyes flared with inner fire as sensation returned to limbs that had never known movement, as neural pathways that had been severed by genetic accident suddenly blazed with new connections that transformed disability into unprecedented capability. The crowd pressed back involuntarily as power flowed through the small figure on the promenade floor. This was no longer a broken child in need of charity. This was something far more dangerous and far more beautiful than any of them had imagined possible. But the final blow came not from words, it came from a name the galaxy had long forgotten. Zara stood. It was a simple movement, the straightening of legs, the shift of weight, the first tentative step forward, but it carried the power to reshape entire civilizations. The Exo-Legs moved with her like extensions of her will, their advanced servos responding to neural commands with a precision that made them indistinguishable from natural limbs. But more than that, they enhanced her natural capabilities, translating thought into movement with an efficiency that transcended anything the galaxy had seen before. The neural integration was perfect, more than perfect. Where human technology would have created crude mechanical approximations of biological function, the Vashti enhancements had created something that was both more and better than what nature had originally intended. Each step sent cascades of feedback through neural pathways that had been dormant since birth, awakening capabilities that had been waiting for the right catalyst to unlock them. She walked toward Vex Morden with the fluid grace of someone who had been born to movement but had been denied it until this moment. Each step rang against the promenade's deck like a bell tolling judgment, the sound carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate in the bones of every being present. The crowd parted before her without conscious thought, instinctively recognizing something that their rational minds were still struggling to process. As she moved, the air around her began to shimmer with barely visible energy patterns. The Exo-Legs weren't just mechanical devices. They were conduits for forces that existed at the intersection of consciousness and quantum reality. Each step drew power from sources that conventional science could only theorize about, transforming her from a victim of circumstance into something that existed beyond the normal boundaries of galactic society. "You spoke of contamination from inferior genetics," she said, her young voice now carrying undertones that resonated with frequencies beyond normal hearing. The words seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, bypassing the ears entirely and speaking directly to the neural centers responsible for understanding language. Of the smell of poverty, of messes that needed to be cleaned up, of beings who don't deserve the dignity of existence in your carefully ordered world. The trade official tried to back away, but his legs seemed to have forgotten how to move. Around him, his entourage had melted away like morning mist, suddenly discovering urgent business elsewhere in the station. The bio-enhancements that had once been symbols of his superiority now seemed like crude attempts to approximate capabilities that came naturally to beings who had evolved beyond the need for such artificial augmentation. "I want you to remember this moment," Zara continued, stopping just within arm's reach of the terrified hegemony official. The power emanating from her small form was no longer subtle. The air itself crackled with energies that made sensitive beings' neural implants spark and flicker. Remember it when your medical licenses come up for renewal. Remember it when your trade agreements need validation. Remember it when you wake in the dark hours before dawn and wonder why the neural interfaces in your bio-enhancements have stopped responding to your commands. Her amber eyes blazed with inner light that seemed to contain the accumulated wisdom of a civilization that had been guiding galactic development from the shadows for millennia. In that gaze, Vex Morden saw his future laid out with crystalline clarity. A future where his carefully constructed status meant nothing, where his purchased perfection became a liability, where beings like him discovered what it meant to be judged by those they had dismissed as inferior. The Vashti Collective remembers every slight, every cruelty, every moment when compassion could have been shown, but was withheld instead, she said, her words carrying the weight of judgment that would echo through systems and civilizations. We have watched you build your society on foundations of arrogance and exploitation. We have given you tools of healing and watched you use them to create new forms of division. We have offered you the gift of technological advancement and observed how quickly you transformed it into weapons of social control. She turned to Marcus, who had been watching the scene unfold with the quiet satisfaction of someone who had witnessed justice served with surgical precision. The power that had surrounded her began to gentle, becoming something warmer and more nurturing as her attention focused on the man who had seen her potential when others saw only problems to be solved. "Thank you," she said simply, her voice returning to something that resembled a normal child's tone. "For seeing me as more than my limitations, for understanding that broken things can be repaired, but more importantly, that beings who seem broken might simply be waiting for someone who understands how they're supposed to work." Marcus smiled, the first genuine expression of joy anyone on the promenade had seen from him in the years he had worked in their shadows. The expression transformed his weathered features, revealing glimpses of the man he had been before grief and loss had taught him to make himself invisible. "Thank you for teaching me that limitations are just problems waiting for the right solution," he replied. "And that sometimes the solution isn't technical, it's simply remembering that every being deserves to be seen as complete rather than broken." Together, they walked toward the promenade's exit, Zara's new legs carrying her with the confidence of someone who had rediscovered what it meant to move freely through the world. Behind them, the crowd parted like a sea, their earlier mockery replaced by a silence that spoke of profound and permanent change. The recording devices that had captured their humiliation now documented their transformation, creating evidence that would spread throughout the galaxy of what happened when compassion met true power. And as they walked away, no one dared laugh again, for they finally understood what they had witnessed. 6 months later, the first Vashti medical facility opened its doors on Kepler Station. Its neural integration technology was available to all species, regardless of economic status or political affiliation. The only requirement was a simple one: that patients be treated with the dignity due to sentient beings facing challenges beyond their control. Marcus Chen was named as the facility's chief technical advisor, a position that came with resources, respect, and the profound satisfaction of watching other lost causes discover that their limitations had been redefined as opportunities. Vex Morden's trade licenses were revoked the following week. His bioenhancement implants began to malfunction shortly after, leaving him to navigate the galaxy in a body that suddenly seemed very fragile and very human. He was last seen working as a junior maintenance technician on a freight hauler bound for the Outer Rim, where beings judge each other by the quality of their work rather than the color of their blood. Lyra Vasek, to everyone's surprise, requested assignment as the Centauri diplomatic liaison to the new medical facility. She later claimed that watching someone be truly healed had reminded her why she had entered diplomatic service in the first place. And Zara, she returned to school, not the restricted programs for damaged beings, but the advanced placement courses where her mind could stretch and grow alongside her newly mobile body. Her mother arrived on Kepler Station 3 days after the medical facility opened, bringing with her technologies that would revolutionize medicine throughout the known galaxy. In her first public address, Dr. Lyra Vashti Chen spoke of her daughter's courage, of Marcus's compassion, and of a simple truth that seemed to have been forgotten in the mad rush toward galactic expansion: that the measure of a civilization is not found in its technology or its wealth, but in how it treats those who have been broken by circumstance and are struggling to heal. In a universe built on arrogance, sometimes a single act of dignity is enough to shift the stars themselves.